region. Kate
Task Force, and Robert Knight, Director of Cultural Studies at the Family Research Council.
Good evening. Welcome to Crossfire. Half a century ago, the famous Kinsey report on sexual behavior estimated that about 10% of American men were homosexual. That figure has often been cited ever since. But a new study released yesterday reaches a far different conclusion. Over 3,000 men in their 20s and 30s were interviewed. 2.4% said they had ever had a homosexual experience, and just 1.1% said they were exclusively homosexual. Today, the President of the United States met with gay rights leaders in the White House. That's a historic first, and our guest, Tori Osborne, was there. But President Clinton will be out of town a week from Sunday when a million people, they hope, are expected to march on Washington in support of gay rights. Is this a snub?
I mean no snub, but presidents usually don't participate in marches. That has nothing to do with my commitment on the fundamental issue of being anti-discrimination.
Pat?
Tori Osborne, when you met with the president today, did he mention his commitment to lift the ban on homosexuals in the military? Does he intend to stick by that or what?
Yes, he absolutely reaffirmed his commitment to lifting the ban against gay men and lesbians in the military. And furthermore, he expressed a kind of an optimism, which we've been working on this issue for the last few months.
He's going to do this by executive order?
He's going to do it by executive order. He's going to do it on July 15th. He's going to do it as planned. And I think he realizes that the tide is turning and there's increased support for his position.
Did he indicate that the hearings on Capitol Hill don't make any difference to him? He's going to do it by executive order on the 15th of July?
As he's always planned. That's been the issue. An executive order on the 15th of July. There's the Rand Corporation study that's in the works. The Pentagon's going to issue their report. The president is obviously going to be reading that report, but what he talked about today is he reaffirmed his commitment against discrimination against gay men and lesbians in the military.
And he is not going to go to your march, though, because he's got a number of engagements that have been arranged for a long time now, so he can't go to the march. Do you think, Tori Osborne, that maybe he saw that report about only 1% of men being homosexual, I guess even less among women, and he said, look, they're very few in number, they're for me anyhow, they ain't got anywhere else to go, and I've already given them something, and if I can't get much further out here, they're going to take me right down the tubes in 96.
I don't think so, Pat. I don't think that was his attitude at all. I mean, what we saw today was very clear that the president's body is going to be in Boston on Sunday, but his spirit is going to be with that march when 1 million people or more of their friends and supporters and of gay men and lesbians come to Washington. There's no question that he's supportive of the march. And if, in fact, that study is right,
is he going to address the march
which we don't believe
distance?
is right, if that study is right, then over half of the gay men and lesbians in all of America will be in Washington next Sunday.
Because you're going to get 1 million people there, right?
We're going to get at least 1 million. The military is preparing for possibly up to 2 million. So there may be, in fact,
millions. What is the military preparing to do?
I think it's just a question of, you know, a lot of people come into town and traffic and, you know.
You know,
I think they're
George
guard
Bush,
Arlington Cemetery, among other things.
George Bush
What does that
used
mean?
to address.
What does that mean?
No,
Well,
there's
they
a
wanted to
demonstration
put
there.
pink triangles on 25,000
Well,
graves
who's
in
they?
Arlington.
Some gay
Who's
men,
they?
some of the gay men
Gay
and
Lesbian
lesbians
and Military Freedom Project?
who are veterans. Some of the gay and lesbian vets have been very active in wanting to use the civil rights movement demonstration that's coming to town as a means to put forward their discussion, their position.
Did he say, as George Bush used to address the right to life marches, he couldn't go down to the monument grounds in a huge crowd of 100,000 people. Did Bill Clinton agree to make a telephone call to your rally before your march, the way President Bush did with Right to Life?
What the president said was that he was going to be there somehow. We didn't decide. We're still negotiating whether it's going to be a live videotaped appearance from wherever he is. That's frankly, what we discussed, and I think is more likely. So the president will be there. He will be there. He'll participate in it as a show of support for the community. He will be there. I don't even think it'll be just a phone hookup. I think there'll be a live by satellite video hookup. And I think that, you know, I think it's a question of him recognizing that gay men and lesbians are a part of the American family.
Bob Knight, what difference does it make what percentage of the population is gay? Do smaller minorities have fewer rights?
It makes a big difference in terms of political power, and that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about a powerful agenda at work to validate a behavior that most Americans find immoral, unhealthy, and destructive. You know, there's
That's
a
not
tragedy.
true.
There's a tragedy unfolding here. We're talking about 1 million people in D.C. next week. You realize that tens of thousands of those people will probably engage in the behavior that will end their lives. That's nothing to celebrate. That's nothing short of a tragedy. And if we were really compassionate, we would be dissuading them from this behavior, not encouraging it.
This is so
Are you
ridiculous.
saying that your sole concern is for this tiny 1% that you're so eager to minimize? That's what motivates you in obsessing about what is only, in your view, 1% of the population?
It's not just my view. 30 studies from around the world, England, France, Australia, Denmark, Norway, they all point to less than 2%, most of them less than 1%.
Yes, but
No,
this
that's
is
not
not
true.
new.
But look,
Only
before we
Kinsey
start
said 10%.
arguing about the numbers, let me ask you, what difference does it make? Surely, whatever you think about gay rights, whether you're for them or against them, shouldn't turn on how many gays there are, should it?
Well, maybe it shouldn't, but the gays didn't believe that. They've been pushing the 10% figure for years. Gay
And
activists
you've been
have
arguing
acknowledged
against the
it's been biggest-
10% figure for years.
That's right. They've argued
What
that
difference does it
it's their
make?
biggest weapon
I'll
in their
tell
arsenal.
you, Michael.
10% of your workforce is gay. Treat them like married couples. 10% of the electorate's gay. You must accommodate their demands. They've used this like a big bat, and it's not working anymore.
If 10% of the population were gay, would Bob Knight then say, by gosh, I'm wrong, I better adopt the gay rights agenda?
Of course not. It's
So-
wrong whether
so-
it's 10 or 1, but we've removed a political weapon that was based on scientific lies. Okay? And that's the first myth that's going to fall. The next one will be
I
the
don't know what you
so-called
mean by
genetic
we.
evidence.
This study was
All right,
done
let
by
me,
a very...
let me bring Tori back into this. Let's
People
talk about the
interested in getting
so-called,
the facts,
the issue of so-called
not myths.
discrimination. I gather you weren't a supporter of Pat Buchanan's in the campaign, and you weren't a member of the Buchanan Brigades. Seems to me you got a perfect right, because of my beliefs and maybe my campaign and et cetera, not to hire me for a job if I walk into your office. You say, listen, I don't agree with you, I don't like what you're doing, I'm not going to hire you. Why can't another individual exercise his freedom of association not to hire Tori Osborne?
Because it's unfair. It's anti-American. The politics that you put forward, the politics that a minority of Americans still subscribe to, that essentially would deprive all Americans
Tori.
from equal rights. Let me just finish,
All right,
Pat.
but you said
what
it's-
I'm saying
right.
is that what we're talking about here is that gay men and lesbians in America not just suffer from discrimination, active discrimination on the job, but they also suffer from violence, an epidemic of hate crimes against our community. They suffer from...
Tori, nobody
from
is in favor of
teen
people
suicide.
beating up
We're talking about
lesbians and
simple
gays.
matter of justice
We're talking
here.
about a matter of freedom, too.
That's right. We're talking
Individuals'
about
freedom
freedom.
of association.
No, we're
You don't want to
talking about
associate with our
people's
friends. They don't want to associate.
The right to be free from discrimination on the job. We're talking about basic American values extending to people who
You're
some
talking
people
about using the
don't
federal
like.
government to force people to act in a way contrary to their deepest beliefs about homosexuality.
Well, those
they don't
beliefs
like it,
are
and they
based
say,
on mythology. They're based
well,
on
yeah,
misinformation.
I don't care what they're based on, Tori. It's their beliefs.
Half
But-
the gay
but
men in
you
New York and
can't-
L.A. are HIV positive, and you're going to tell me that's a myth? Okay? We're
I'm
talking
gonna
about a
s- wait,
dangerous
Why
epidemic.
are we mixing up a public health
But you're
problem?
saying-
Because it has
with gay and
everything to
lesbian-
do with it.
Bob, if gays
The
are really
AIDS
only
issue-
1% of the population, why are you so obsessed with them? Why are you spending your
Now, wait a
life
minute.
fighting
By
them?
being opposed to their aims, I'm obsessed. You know, this is a typical smear tactic,
Of
Michael.
course
I
you're
don't
obsessed.
appreciate
You're
it.
spending your life here at
And-
the Family Research Council. What percentage of your
Well,
time...
Family Research
what-
Council handles any number
What
of issues.
percentage of your
This happens
time
to
do you
be the hot
devote
one now.
to attacking gay rights? A lot more than 1%, I suspect, wouldn't you say?
You know,
At least
Family Research,
10%.
excuse me, Family Research Council is a pretty small organization. We're up against highly financed, large gay organizations.
Oh, this is
okay?
ridiculous.
There are very
There are
few people
15 right-wing
battling
think
the gay
tanks.
rights
There's not
agenda.
one
Very
gay
few
and
people are
lesbian
willing
think
to
tank.
actually do this because of smears like you just tried on me.
But here's
Okay?
what I don't get. You're trying to have
disagree
it
with the
both
policy
ways.
thing, and
On
you
the
call
one
me a
hand,
bigot.
there are a tiny little fraction of the population who deserves no consideration at all. On the other hand,
No consideration at all.
there's this enormous threat and terrible peril that we must all arm ourselves against.
Why don't you ask
And
the
isn't
Boy
that
Scouts?
inconsistent?
Why don't you ask the
talking
Boy
about
Scouts of
people's
America?
lives.
Why
if
don't you
they're a
answer
threat?
my question, Bob?
All right, wait a
I
minute.
am answering it, and you can ask the Boy Scouts if you don't think they're a threat. They've been hauled into courts all over the
Oh, this is-
country. They're told they
This
can't
is
have their moral
fear.
standards. That's tyranny.
We're going to
This
take a
is
break,
okay.
Tori. We've got to take a break now. We'll come back. Is the homosexual lifestyle, as we've been discussing, truly gay, or is it hazardous to your health? That question when we come back. Welcome back. For the first time ever, a president met with leaders of the gay rights movement who want Mr. Clinton to attend their huge march on Washington a week from Sunday, and also to stand by his commitment to include homosexuality as a protected civil right. Here to debate the issue are Robert Knight, Director of Cultural Studies at the Family Research Council here in Washington, and Tori Osborne, Executive Director of the National Gay and Lesbian Task Force. Now, Tori, I mentioned to you that I read this article in Vanity Fair last night about leaders in the homosexual community. Let me read you a quote from David Mixner, who's one of the national leaders, about 50 years old. Just a quote I picked up. It said, "I've lost 189 friends to AIDS. Now, how can you call homosexuality a healthy lifestyle when its defining practice is killing people under 50 years old at a rate like that?"
This is, once again, Pat, you are perpetuating one of the most unfortunate myths and disinformation that you tend to put forward. AIDS is a virus. The AIDS crisis is a public health issue. Right. It has affected many communities. Right. It has affected people who engage in certain behaviors, including gay men and lesbians.
Can I give you another number?
No, I want to talk about something, though. I want to talk about what AIDS has also done. One of the legacies that AIDS has given to the gay and lesbian community is an unbelievable determination, because we have watched our friends die. I have been to more funerals than anybody should go to at my age. Yep. And what that has given me is a sense of what life's priorities are, and a sense of what love and community can build.
Let me give you another
statistic.
Let me finish. Let's get back to the issue.
Let me talk about the kinds of families
we're going to get into the families, but I want to follow
family.
up. Excuse me, Tori. Paul Curran, Dr. Curran, I'm sure you're familiar with this, did a study of more than 5,200 obituaries from gay newspapers over a 5-year period. The average age of death of those with AIDS was 39 years old. If you take AIDS completely out, the average age of death of the homosexuals in those newspapers was 41 years old. Only 1% lived to 65 years of age. What this suggests is that homosexuality as a lifestyle is taking decades off the lives of young men. Do you deny the report and the numbers? They've been widely published.
Yes, I do. I've read about these studies, and these studies are all part of a right-wing disinformation campaign. Here's the truth. AIDS has killed a lot of people. It's killed 200,000 people in this country, and many of them are gay men. Many of them are my friends. And all I'm saying is that the struggle of gay men and lesbians for civil rights and equality in this society is one that I think is going into a new era where we're going to begin to be taking our message home to America. More and more gay men and lesbians are coming out and telling the truth, which is we are cops, we are nurses, we are lawyers, we are carpenters.
Knows that,
and you're 1% instead of 10%.
But you know what? Let's talk about the numbers for a second.
I want to ask Bob a question about that. Sure. You keep talking about this, using this phrase, promoting the gay lifestyle, and Pat's obsessed with promoting the gay lifestyle. If gays are only 1% of the population after all this promotion, it hasn't been much of a success, has it?
That's because the behavior is so abominable to most people that they reject it out of hand. Not because they hate homosexuals.
That's a lie.
It's the behavior itself we're talking about, not homosexuals themselves. I don't know anybody who hates homosexuals.
Do you honestly believe?
I don't know anybody who would want their child to be told that it's a good, healthy, normal lifestyle choice when we know otherwise.
Do you honestly believe that homosexuality is a choice that people have, that they can turn it on and off like a light switch?
Thousands of former homosexuals give the lie to the idea that it's genetic.
Could you become homosexual if someone said to you?
Can I finish a sentence?
Go ahead.
There are 160 ex-gay ministries around the country. They have liberated thousands of people from the lifestyle.
That's swell.
They have shown people their true gender identities, and they've allowed them to have families.
Now let me ask you, can you imagine...
You guys ignore these people.
Can you imagine any circumstance in which you could be forced to become a homosexual, successfully converted from being heterosexual to homosexual?
The problem begins early in childhood. The best literature we have indicates it's a gender identity deficit.
All right, let me get Tori
most of these people, I don't believe, choose it, but they can change their behavior.
If you can't change, why do you think they can change?
Why would I want to change?
Tori, let me...
I'm not saying why would they want to change?
Tori back into
living
it, please.
a very destructive lifestyle.
I really resent that. I am not living a destructive lifestyle. Every time you talk, and all your statistics about, I've helped to raise a child. I have co-parented a child. I know what parenting is about. Gay men and lesbians are parents, they are children, they are part of the American family. Now, you know, the studies aside, let's talk about the numbers first of all. I mean, the fact is that whether we are 2% or 20%, there should not be discrimination against us, violence against us.
There shouldn't be violence. Let me tell you why they, all right,
gay on gay,
1978 study, excuse
That's
me.
absolutely not true.
1978 study,
The gay
Tori.
press all
Bob,
the
can you
time.
hold it a second?
Sorry.
1978 study. 43% of the gay men interviewed said they had more than 500 sex partners in a lifetime, and 28% said 1,000 partners. Now, to an average guy who's not a homosexual, that is unbelievable in terms of behavior. Now, I mean, do you not understand why people look on something like that as a compulsive and dangerous behavior?
I think that there are a lot of people who don't yet know gay people or know lesbians and gay men, and who have clung like dust. Some of the myths have clung.
Is that a myth?
Your numbers, every single number
studies.
that
These
you
are
have-
scientific
That was
studies.
1978. Don't you think
Yeah,
things
I
have
mean-
changed?
No, I
because of
saw it.
AIDS? People
No,
aren't
It's from
stupid.
70 partners a year to
Unfortunately,
50.
they haven't. Yeah.
50 partners a year.
It has
Of
changed,
course
but
it's
not only,
changed.
but even if it hadn't changed, people's sexual should be a privacy issue. People's sexual orientation is not something, for the most part, that is chosen. There are people who choose it, and frankly, nobody should be discriminated against whether they choose it
But
like a
Tori,
religion.
if I got a guy
or
that
they're
comes to
born
work and
that
he's
way.
said I've slept with 1,000 women last
Well,
year,
he's not gonna
or
come
in
to
my
work and say
lifetime,
that.
you'd say,
That's
well, wait a minute, I don't think I'm going to hire you. I'm going to take this married guy.
Sex.
What's
All
wrong
right,
with
on
that?
that
This is
note, we're going to take a
ridiculous.
break while we all think about that proposition. When we come back, I'm going to ask Bob whether he and America don't owe thanks to the gay lifestyle.
Hello, I'm Susan Rook. At the top of the hour, the French Forum.
If gays are really only 1% of the population, doesn't that suggest they've made a disproportionate contribution to America and that they ought to be thanked, not hounded?
That is the contribution of artists, sculptors, writers. You know, you say it's gay culture, okay? That's the problem here. They want to wear their sexuality on their sleeve. If a gay person writes a great play, it's a great play.
Look,
okay?
call it what you want.
But
How can you say?
You're trying to identify their
there's-
sexual behavior with their art.
No, you're
okay?
the one who's obsessed with their sexual behavior. My point is, if they're making this enormous
again.
contribution to American life, how inherently destructive can their
All right, I'll tell you
behavior
how.
be?
Let me get another quote in here. It's out of a Bob Knight study. Now, whether it's 1% or 2% or 3% homosexual, let's say 3%. 33%.
Let's say 10%.
All right, say 10.
8%.
33% of the molestation cases involving children involve homosexuals. An extraordinarily high percentage.
That
about
is
5 or 10.
another lie. I'm sorry, but this is getting
Is this
to be
a lie?
ridiculous.
No, it's not.
Yes,
Well,
it is.
let's put it- can I put it a
98% of
different
child
way? Let me
molesters are
put it-
heterosexual men.
Not if they molest little
98%.
boys, they're not. That is homosexual activity
And-
prima facie. I mean, you cannot say that's not homosexual activity if a man diddles a little boy, okay? Don't tell me that's
If it's a
normal.
heterosexual man
Come on.
who molests little girls
Then he's
or
not,
little
by
boys,
definition,
then he's,
heterosexual.
well,
Wait a
fine.
minute.
You can have
Yes.
it
A
both ways.
heterosexual
You
because
can't
a
have-
man who molests a
homosexual-
little girl is not heterosexual?
This
A
isn't
homosexual
about
is
sex.
defined
this is
by
about
the behavior.
discrimination.
And
this
once
is about
a
American.
person has a same-sex act, it's
That's
a
why
homosexual
the
act.
Boy Scouts discriminate, though. That's why
That's
the
right.
Boy
That's why
Scouts
the
say we
Boy
don't want them
Scouts-
there.
It would destroy the Scouts to have
People-
gay Scoutmasters. No parent
There
in the right
are
mind.
already gay
And they-
Scoutmasters.
well, they better stay in the
And if
closet,
you took
because if they're
lesbians out of the
found
Girl
out, they
Scouts,
should
you
be
wouldn't
out
have
of there.
summer camp. I mean, the truth is gay men and lesbians
Really?
are serving in the military.
Are Girl Scouts full of lesbians?
The
Is that
Girl
what you're
Scouts
saying?
have lesbians, the Boy Scouts have gay Scoutmasters, the military is filled with gay men and lesbians. Gay men and
Right,
lesbians
and
are
there's a
everywhere.
policy
the
for them to
problem
contain
is
their
that it's
behavior
not
because
safe
it's not
for them to come out of the
validated.
closet
That's-
because of the
you're
kind
darn
of
right it isn't.
because of the kind of
Well,
policies
why not
that
leave
you
well
are
enough
allowing.
alone? Why not leave
Yeah,
well enough alone?
this is why they've served so well
Because
in
of
the
this
military.
kind of
They've had the
hatred
ban.
that exists.
All right,
Hatred
all right,
again.
hold
See
on,
the
hold
smear.
on. We're out of time. Thank you, Bob Knight. Thank you, Tori Osborne. Pat and I will be back in just a moment.
Notice anything?
On Newsmaker Saturday will be Treasury Secretary Lloyd Bentsen and Los Angeles Police Chief Willie Williams. That's 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time here on CNN. Pat?
Well, I thought you were going to start, Michael, but I think that the problem really is behavior, and that's why people react as they do.
Look, nobody has done more to change the behavior and to educate people about what is dangerous behavior than the gay community itself. And that's why AIDS rates in the gay community have plummeted
Right.
in recent years.
But Michael,
most of these
all right, okay,
cases
I know.
are from people who were doing things before they knew it was dangerous.
Michael, how can you call it a healthy, happy lifestyle when the rates of disease and death in the gay community are still astronomical? I mean, if smoking killed everybody at 40 years old, even I'd say, look, do away with it.
Look, anyone who's practicing something they shouldn't be doing it. But most of them have given it up.
But listen, you want to take the GM trucks off the road that killed about 3 people, you got tens of thousands of dead.
Who do you want to take off the road? From the left, I'm Mike Kinsley. Good night for Crossfire.
From the right, Pat Buchanan. Join us for another edition of Crossfire on Monday.
Prime News is next. Let's ask Joe Oliver what he's got on offer. Joe?
Thank you, Pat. Michael. Next on Prime News, the UN